At a March 31st news conference, Mayor Daley responded to the state budget proposal by Governor Pat Quinn and expressed his concerns on key issues such as capital spending, education funding, pension relief, the proposed state income tax relief, and property tax relief. Here are highlights from that news conference.
2 weeks ago, Governor Quinn presented his first budget to the General Assembly. His address reflected the difficult, and we say very, very difficult, economic times our state is experiencing, as well as our country and the world. Just as we made very difficult and tough decisions in Chicago last fall to balance our city budget, and you have to understand we took a financial plan of 09, 10, 11, and 12, so we thought about 4 years. We did not think about just the 1 year. In a financial crisis, you have to think farther than just the 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month, or 1 year. You have to at least look over 4 years or more. It's clear that our leaders in Springfield will face many difficult choices to balance their budget next year. As you understand, the city, county, and state has to balance their budget. The federal government never has to balance their budget, and that is always a quirk with me. Just think, all of us have to balance our budgets in our home. They don't have to balance their budget. They just print money, and that is not good for the economy. But like most people, I take this proposal for what it is, a starting, and it is a starting point for conversation and debate. And that's what you have to have, like anything else in a proposal. That's why today I want to offer my thoughts on how I believe the state's budget can better address Chicago's needs. I reviewed many of these challenges 2 weeks ago as part of the city's agenda for Springfield. As mayor, my job is to be an advocate for the people of Chicago. I'm offering my comments in the spirit of working together with the governor and members of the legislature. There is still time for us to address all these concerns, which many of these concerns go over many years. First, I want to thank the governor for his proposal to invest in capital and infrastructure spending across the state. We haven't had a capital bill from Springfield in over 5 years dealing with infrastructure. His proposal comes, I believe, just at the right time, as the economic stimulus package goes in and the transportation proposal will come forward eventually in Washington, D.C. But there aren't yet a lot of details in this part of the proposed budget. We don't yet know how much Chicago will receive overall or by category as well. Clearly in Chicago, we have an important infrastructure needs that range from improving constructing schools to upgrading public transportation, of course, to paving, repairing our streets and our roads, as well as other things. We want and will take all the support we can get. Because it's unclear how much capital, and Richard Rodriguez is here from the CTA as well, the capital funding for the CTA will receive. It's too soon to know the extent to which operating dollars, and this is a bad, bad sign, when you have to take operating dollars that have been used for capital improvements in the past would not be freed up. So anytime you use capital money for operating funds, that is a no-no. And when that takes place, there is serious financial crisis for any taxing body, or any business. You cannot do that. The more capital dollars the CTA receive, the less pressure there will be on the CTA to turn to higher fares or service cuts. Next, we are disappointed that new funding for schools, public schools, will be limited to $54 million, which is the lowest in many, many years. Especially during these tough economic times, I believe our schools and our students need leaders in Springfield and Washington to step up and accept their responsibility to provide substantial greater funding for public education year by year. And this is the complete answer to all the social ills that we may see in our community. If you educate younger children, give them the tools for life. If you don't, there's failure. You see failure in gangs, drugs, go to county jail, go to juvenile court, go to state prisons. And you can see it all over, unfortunately. The best way to secure our state's economic future is to invest in education of our students today and not wait another year and another year and another year. We can't afford to slow any of our progress in any of our schools. The bottom line is that Chicago schools need about $200 million more in funding this year as compared to last year. Without it, they'll be forced to consider classroom cuts, higher property taxes this year, something we hope to avoid. To this credit, our new school leaders have already announced their plans to cut administrative and non-classroom spending by another $60 million this year. Next, the governor's proposed budget does not embrace the pension relief Remember, we in the city of Chicago have to pay for pensions. We're the only school district in the state. The state pays for all the state pension for teachers. I do too as taxpayers. A taxpayer in Chicago, I basically pay my taxes to pay for the pensions outside the city of Chicago. And we have to pay, we have a double tax. We pay our state tax, then we pay a city tax for the pensions. And the governor's proposal does not embrace the pension relief that the Board of Education needs this year to relieve its budget pressure, because they have to put so much money in local property taxes into the pensions. The increasing cost of personnel is a growing problem for every city, state, and business, as well as the federal government. Let's admit it. We must get those costs under control. Of course, our next concern is shared by Chicago and other cities around the state. It appears that although the governor proposes increase in state income tax, and the cities made this forge many, many years ago, it does not allow local government to benefit from its growth should it be enacted. We get no benefit. And that was the proposal, to bring all cities to get support of the original income tax. You need the support of cities. Under the approach that has been in effect for years, to increase the state income tax would automatically increase the local share of the income tax, which is fair. Without doing this, he's increasing the pressure on local government across the state to increase local taxes and fees. An example is the state, not outside Chicago, they deal with all the pensions and everything else for these city employees. I feel sorry for the smaller communities. And they just keep adding everything on. They say, you go pay it, local taxpayers. Something we all must work to avoid this year. If that happens, we have to avoid that. Next, there's no support for property tax. And I've always talked about property tax relief in the bill, a challenge that needs to be met in communities all across Illinois, and not just Chicago. Starting in the 1900s and continuing until the early part of 2008, many Chicago residential neighborhoods experienced rapidly rising real estate values that resulted in higher assessments. In 2003, reassessment of the city of Chicago, the average residential assessment increased by more than 32%. In 2003, increase was compounded by a subsequent increase of 41% in 2006. Had it not been for the 7% cap for which we led the fight, these higher assessments would have been translated into significantly higher property taxes, with possible increases in thousands of dollars for long-term, low-income, and senior households. However, the 7% cap is scheduled to decrease this year, is eliminated altogether next year, something, again, I opposed during the last year's legislative session. As a result, over 160,000 homeowners in Chicago will see a tax increase of more than $300 in this fall's property tax bill. This is happening even as people have seen their home values, and we're hearing this continually. Your home values are going down by 20–30%. And they can't do any refinancing. Home values have gone down. Their value is worth maybe $800,000. Their value is now $400,000 or $600,000. And incomes dropped as a result of the nation's recession. In 2010, the remaining homeowner exemption will provide only $300 in relief, in contrast to $2,100 in relief provided in 2006. Today, we are proposing that in order to offer the property tax relief that otherwise would have been covered under the 7% cap in Cook County, and to provide the kind of relief statewide, the General Assembly should expand the state property tax circuit breaker program. And we'll be testifying in Springfield on that, both in the House and the Senate. We're especially concerned that without this step, many, many communities, and not just in Chicago, have been hit hard by the recession, will be even harder hit. Under our proposal, which follows the recommendation of the Property Tax Advisory Council, that the circuit breaker program should be expanded. The state would offer a tax credit or grant to homeowners earning less than $150,000, but who pay more than 5% of their adjusted gross income to local property taxes. To partially offset the cost of the program, the current 5% property tax credit will be capped. Currently, that credit is unlimited, and as a consequence, owners of very expensive homes can receive very large credits. The existing state circuit breaker program provides some relief to seniors and persons with disabilities. Protections our proposal continues to include, but the existing program is limited in scope. covering only 32,000 homeowners in Cook County. Our proposal will make almost 1 million households statewide eligible for property tax relief. Bottom line, unless the cities, towns, and communities get some relief, I've talked about today from the governor's budget, the pressure will only increase our local governments, increase local property taxes and fees this year, unfortunately, with the economy only getting worse, and it is getting worse. It is difficult to predict just how much further our revenues will continue to fall. And every day, and every week, and every month, they are falling drastically. That's why we need a statewide infrastructure plan, a greater education funding, ongoing support from the state income tax, as well as pension and property tax relief. I believe all these have been discussed in the past. Everybody knows what the issues are. It's important to remember that we're at the start of the budget process in Springfield. You're at the starting gate. There's plenty of time for all the concerns to be addressed. I believe, I'm very hopeful with Governor Quinn and his new, I think he has a new financial team, which they need drastically in Springfield. You can't take the old team and put them in place. You have to have a new team, and he has a whole new team, I believe, in Springfield dealing with the financial crisis, because the legislators and the leaders know what it's been. And I look forward to a good discussion and dialogue with the governor and other people in regards to not only our city, but the entire state. Thank you.